Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Okay, so hey, there are times when we all could use a little extra help and support in our lives. Whether there's something you're struggling with or just seeking connection with other people who understand what it's like to be in your situation, Inovia Behavioral Health can help. Inovia is a subscription-based organization that provides unlimited access to a wide variety of educational, experiential, and therapeutic support groups that are led by live expert facilitators. Now, you can get 20% off your membership with the discount code Cookbook20 when you subscribe. Check it out today at inoviabh.com. Inovia, feel better. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm Iris Goldfeder, your host, and today I'm super excited about our guest. We met a couple of weeks ago and we just clicked, and her story is, pretty, incredible, and she's pretty incredible. So I'm going to read her bio and bring her on, and then you can see how incredible she is too. So Kat is an entrepreneur, podcaster, speaker, a mother of 2 boys, and an overcomer of 8 years of domestic abuse. Kat has a passion for seeing others succeed and believes that some are meant to go through certain hardships so that they may be the voice for others who cannot. And man, I was just talking about this yesterday, so I can't wait to get into this with her. Her focus now is to not only grow her business and help others grow, but to share her message and connect with as many as she can that relate to and have dealt with abuse or any trauma in their life that may be holding them back. And I think all of us have that on some level. Her mission is to bring connection, support, and understanding to those, and more as a way to give strength, courage, and love to the many who may need it most or may be hiding and suffering silently. That just touches my heart. So without further ado, let's meet Kat. Hey there.
Hello.
God, I was just talking with somebody yesterday, and, I said that I really believe that we go through our shit so that we can help others, so that others don't have to go through it. Or if they're going through it, there's somebody here who can understand and listen, not necessarily try to fix it. I learned that lesson. My wife and I talked about that last night. You can't fix everything because I'm a fixer, but just that there's that person there to kind of listen and be there.
Yeah, 100%. And I was a fixer as well, so I totally get that.
Doesn't that suck?
Oh.
So I had this situation where, two people that I know had a business transaction. It didn't well, and they don't know that, the one person confided on me. The other person has no idea. And my first inclination was, I need to fix this. I need to tell the person who screwed up what they did wrong, and so that she could fix it. But if I do that, then I break the confidence of the person who confided in me, and I would never, so I knew I couldn't. So I'm doing soul work, and with a woman, Jennifer Urezio, who she'll be on next week. And we were going through everything, and she goes, so why do you think you have to fix it? And I said, because I know how. I know the answer. And she goes, but why do you have to fix it? And I said, because that's what I do. And she goes, no, this is not for you to fix. She goes, one person will get hurt in this. And I said, me. And she was like, yeah. So we did this, thing where it disconnected me from it. And I felt completely disconnected until I talk about it. And then I'm like, oh, I want to fix it again. But I know it's not my place. So, So, yeah. How do you deal with, when you see, because we're fixers, we look at it and we know the solution.
Yep.
So
that is the hardest thing. And I think that, especially being a mom as well, I always want to fix things for my kids. That's always the thing. For me, I have learned to ask questions that could provoke them coming up with their own answers.
And
that's been the biggest thing for me.
Which is awesome, right? So the person called me that morning who had the issue, which was just like, of course you're going to call me, and kind of lied to me, said that whatever they were going through didn't affect them and, whatever. And I was like, oh, why didn't you just tell me? Because now that's affected me in a way that I have trust issues, and I'm not going to, trust that person anymore, which kind of sucks because I can't say that I know what happened. So it's like, now it can't be fixed because I can't, I was speaking to somebody last week who, like us, wants to fix everything. And she calls me up and she goes, I know that, she goes, I need to fix something. You always fix my shit. So I need you to fix this. And I'm like, I don't even know what any of that means. Like, I don't know. And she said, there's a situation where I know I can't fix it. So how do I handle it? And I said, you got to walk away. I said, because I can't even answer that for you now. So if she would have asked me this week, I would have been like, it's not yours to fix, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. So it was like, I don't know how to advise you on this other than maybe remove yourself from the situation. If it's going to hurt you, if it's something that you can actually fix and it's going to help everybody involved, fix it. Well, I can't do that. And like my brain was going to explode because I was like, I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to fix this. So now I do. So I'm probably going to call her tomorrow and be like, I have the answer, but I'm not going to do it now. So I know your story. We had an amazing conversation, and I know we have a wine and Zoom coming up, but let's, I know I can't wait for that, but let's tell the audience, your story and how you got where you were. We'll talk about the business crap later, but let's, learn about you and your journey because it's pretty neat.
Sure. So, wow. So I have a heck of a journey, I guess. I guess we'll start when I was a teenager. So I was one of those popular kids in school. I was in sports. I did all the things. Everybody knew me, the whole 9 yards. Decided that I needed a boyfriend because everybody else had one. I ended up getting pregnant at 16. So at the age of 16, I had to make the decision to either, keep my child or adopt him out because abortion was not an option. I decided to keep him. So I set aside my softball career, my choir, singing, found an alternative school. I actually moved schools the next year. Found a school that I was able to actually take my son with me so that I could continue breastfeeding at the age of 16.
Wow.
So I graduated a year early. So as a junior, I graduated salutatorian, so second in the school, and president of student council. And then from there, I moved into a full-time job working at a daycare center because I could take my son with me. And I started college at night. So that was my routine. From there, I guess I kind of got caught up in the I'm a big girl, I can do this kind of thing because I was providing for my son. I paid for all of my stuff. Was very lucky to have a lot of people that ended up supporting me from my church along the way. And so I made the teenage decision that I could do it on my own. So I moved out with a boyfriend at that time, which ended up being an 8-year abusive relationship. So during that time, I did have another son that was 3 years apart. So I was about 19 when I had him. And oh gosh, I went through everything from working 2 and 3 jobs while he stayed at home to doing all the chores, to taking my kids to school, to homework, to the whole 9 yards. So
wow.
I lost a lot of money that I had to hide from him. I lost connection with my family, friends, everything that you could think of. So at the age of 27, I finally got out with my two kids. They were 10 and 7 at the time, and I literally started over with nothing but a full-time job. I had to file bankruptcy, bought my first car at 27, got a cell phone, and started life over in one bedroom, back in with my parents at that time, and rebuilt my entire life with my boys.
Wow. That's incredible. And you hear stories, of people that are in these abusive relationships. And the first thing, when you said you lost touch with your family and you lost, touch with your friends, the first thing they do is isolate you.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the first thing. I don't really talk about this a lot, but well, now it'll be out there. My very first relationship was abusive. And it was, I think I was 22. And I should say my first relationship with a woman, because I, had been with guys before, but they weren't real. Anyway, so I digress. But I was with her for 5 years. She came home pregnant. Obviously wasn't mine. But in that 5-year period, like the first 2 years, she completely alienated me from everybody, and took me away. And, this was in the 80s, and, we didn't have cell phones. So if I needed to call somebody, I would have to like kind of sneak out and go to the payphone. And I had friends that were like, just say the word and I'll make one phone call. And I was like, no, no, we're not going to do that. You need to get out of there. No, I'm fine. Until, we actually had a fight, and it was after 5 years of being beaten up, I finally fought back. And then I left the next day, but it was, I didn't realize it. And when you're in it, you don't realize it until you're like, wait a minute, and the thing that did it for me was when she was pregnant, because I grew up with my mom. It was just she and I fixed everything around the house. I did all the things. And when, she and I got together, she did everything. And all of a sudden I couldn't do anything. I didn't know how. I was stupid. I was useless. And then when she was pregnant, all of a sudden I'm like fixing everything and doing things. And I was like, oh, what the hell? I know how to do all the things. Like, why haven't I been doing this? And I literally, I know, Skylar, I agree. And I literally kind of woke up, and it was like, oh, and then leaving her at the time with her. But anyway, when I realized that I was able to do all of the things, I was like, what am I doing in this? And then I made my little exit plan, which took 2 years. But, I got out, and it wasn't anything dramatic, or not dramatic, but, like where I had money put aside and all that. I waited until a specific time, and I called my friend up, and I'm like, can I move in? And it was like, yeah, you move in. We had just bought a whole bunch of furniture and a whole bunch of we had just bought furniture and ceiling fans and carpet and spent like $5,000 on stuff. And I left with a plastic bag, my guitar, clothes, and a couple of, mementos from, my childhood. And that was it. And I never like looked at it that I was in an abusive relationship until people started coining the abusive relationship, and then looking at the markers, the isolation, the whole thing. So it was kind of crazy. And then I hear people's stories now, like, your story and Sabrina's story, and my God, like all these other women. And it's like, I didn't even realize it until 3 years after I was out of it.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that too, because, like, I didn't really see it that way in the beginning. And then because I was a fixer, right, I just wanted to fix the issues.
And the person,
And
right? Because we're
yeah,
going to make this right. This is going to be okay. Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
And my family didn't have that as an issue. My parents are still together. They've been together for 25 years. You know, I was raised in a really good home, so it's not like that was a reoccurring instance. But for some reason, you know, I got myself in a situation that I felt like I couldn't go back. And so it was my responsibility to fix it so that my kids could have a whole family, right? And I think that that was one of the reasons why I tried to make it work for so long. Ultimately, mine was not as easy as walking out. I did end up having to finally have mine arrested. No one knew what was going on until the morning I walked into the doctor's office that I worked for. And I happened to be chatting with a patient who was a friend of mine who worked for the court system. And I was kind of giving him some information. And that's when he told me that he worked for the domestic violence center at the courthouse. And he said, either you call the cops now or I call them for you. So if it wouldn't have been for him and having that conversation, there's a possibility I would have stayed more. I knew that I wanted out, but I was trying to create that plan and try to put money away. That was really hard when I had someone that was constantly in and involved on everything,
Right.
Hiding money and things like that. Just, it was really hard to get by. So yeah, so I had to have mine arrested. We were renting a place at the time, so I still had the house rented because I didn't even have time to get my stuff out. So I had to let my landlord know, and it took me over a month to get things out because I worked a full-time job, plus both my kids were in school. So I had to make sure my kids got on the bus. I had to be at work, and then I worked until almost 6. And then by the time I came home, I had to make sure they were taken care of. So I would come back to the house at night and try to take things as I could, or on the weekends. So it was a little bit of a process. And so in that, there's a lot of additional things. My ex showed back up when I wasn't there, left flowers all over the house, created a shrine in the bedroom. I had to call the cops again for stalking. Like, there was multiple things that just kept going on. And then because of the unfortunate situation of the court system, the way that at least it works in my state, you could only talk about the instant that you had them arrested. So none of the years mattered before or any other items because it had never been documented. So it was one specific case is all that they could do. So that was that one day. So I actually fought in court for almost 4.5 years between his case, custody battle, the whole 9 yards. He ultimately got visitation with my son, which became another problem because my son would come home on my birthday, special occasions, and Valentine's Day and stuff like that. He would bring flowers that were from Dad, special gifts that only he knew that I liked. Like, it was a constant battle with that. I did my absolute best, which is not the right way to do, but I did my absolute best the first year to just like completely shut everything down. Right. My focus was solely on working 40 to 50 hours a week, taking care of my kids, and I put myself back in college because I never got to finish college when I got with my ex. So I was determined to get my college degree, so I went to college at night online. So I shoved everything down and basically worked myself to death. If somebody needed something, I was there. My kids and I were out almost every weekend doing something to make up for all the times we weren't allowed to do anything. Through that, I actually ended up having heart issues. I had to see a heart doctor. I had to wear a monitor. I had an EKG, the whole 9 yards.
You're too young for that shit. I mean, seriously, that's wow.
I ended up, the specialist that I saw said I had 1,000 extra heartbeats within a 24-hour period. So they knew that I was having apparently like panic attacks, which I had no clue what that was. But he said my heart was healthy. He's like, so sometimes, if you're going through stress, that could be issues. And I'm like, I'm not stressed. Like, I'm not with my ex. Like, what's, but when I really started kind of digging into it, I found out that the time that the heart issues actually started happening was literally the year to date that I had him arrested.
Wow.
And so that's when I finally made the decision to put myself in therapy. I put my kids in therapy immediately when I left the situation. But I wasn't ready to have that conversation or talk with anyone about it to begin with. So I was like, I'll be fine, right? I always do this. I move on.
Going to power through, and we're going to
That's
be,
not how it works, by the way, please.
Right. Yes, don't power through it. Go get the help that you need, because when you power through it, you end up with like 1,000 heartbeats in a day that you're not supposed to.
Yeah. So I saw a therapist, and that's actually when I started talking about some of the situations and everything. She said, yeah, you've been brainwashed. And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me. What? I was like, no. And she was like, actually. And so she went through this whole thing and explained it all to me. And I was like, holy shit, like, how do you deal with that? So I was diagnosed with brainwashing issues, anxiety, and PTSD.
Okay. We did not talk about that the first time we spoke. I mean, I knew about the PTSD, not about the brainwash. Holy.
Yeah. So, I literally had to eventually reprogram. Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, a lot of the things that we don't pay attention to, now, our subconscious and things like that, and the difference that it makes, which is why it's such a passion of mine to like really bring that to light with people, whether it's in their business or in their personal life and things like that, is because there were things that I did that I didn't even realize that I was doing. So for instance, I was dating a gentleman at a time, this is like 2 years down the road, and we would go to the grocery store together, or, Walmart, something like that. And he made a comment one time when we got home. He said, why do you always walk behind me with your head down? And I was like, what are you talking about? Wow. He was like, every time we go to the store, you walk behind me to my side and you always have your head down. Why do you do that? And I realized that was a programming that I had taken on, because anytime that I went in the store with my ex, if I walked ahead of him, I was looking at other people, or I wasn't paying attention to him, or I was doing something wrong. And then if I looked in people's direction, I was accused of checking someone out. I thought they were hot. I was trying to make eye contact. I was cheating, the whole 9 yards. So I literally became programmed to stay behind and keep my head down to avoid the confrontation.
Wow. I'm like, I'm not often speechless, but wow. That's so how did, man, how do you come back from that? Like, how do you deprogram that? I mean, that had not even realizing that you're doing it. So, okay. So when you realized it, was it a holy shit, I need to fix this? Or was it a, you continued to do it until you realized that, okay, you don't need to do it anymore. Like what happened with.
So with that one specifically, it was interesting that somebody brought it up to me, because they did. I was actually grateful. I was also in a different place where I was ready to heal things, which does not happen in the very beginning. It is a long, drawn out process, and you do have to be ready to go through that piece. And so for me, it was taking the steps to understand that it wasn't there was something wrong with me. It's just that was what I was around for so long. And so I started learning about the psychology behind things and what brainwashing meant or what it could do. And I started learning about narcissism. And so I started actually looking into those things to learn more about it, so that I could start recognizing patterns within myself and be able to change them without blaming myself. Because one of the things that I did in the very beginning was I blame myself for everything that happened. I blame myself for my kids being in that situation that long. I blame myself for all the emotions that I had. So even at night, if I would fall asleep crying, which I did a lot because I lived with someone for 8 years. So you go from being with someone to complete isolation. And I would get upset because I was alone. No, then I get pissed off at myself because I was crying, and I was crying because of him, which I freaking hated, right? So it's like this it's this internal battle that you're constantly fighting that a lot of people just don't know about, or we fight it silently. We wonder why it's so hard to get ourselves out of a dark place. So I really took the time to start learning about it so that I could separate that from me and be like, okay, this is what happens. This is what people go through. Like, it's not that there's something wrong with me. It's not that it's a fault of mine, right? It's just something I have to work on. It's something that I can improve on. It's something that I could fix. And then I became determined to not be that person because I knew that that's not who I was, right?
I'm just like, that's just so intense. I mean, okay, so I was never, programmed to do well. You know what? I don't know. I mean, who the hell knows? It was like 100 years ago, so who knows? But the fact that somebody made you aware is huge, because obviously that was meant to happen. Mm-hmm. Just like it was meant to happen that you're the guy that you work with, or came in and he worked for the courts. I mean, all of that. I'm a fatalist. I believe everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents. Everything is intentional from the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. And, we all get saved when we're ready, right? And we save ourselves. And for people listening, it's so funny because this podcast was always, it always goes back to the entrepreneurship thing. But what I love about this, and I was talking about this the other day, is everybody has a story. Everybody has a journey. And yeah, we may be entrepreneurs, but we went through a lot of shit, before we got to that point. And not everybody's story is the same. So, thank you for sharing that. After you realize that, and I also want people listening to know that if you're going through this, it's okay to reach out, right? And ask for help. And if you don't know that you're going through it, I really hope that maybe this sparks something in you that makes you go, wait a minute, what am I in? What am I doing? Because this is happening for a reason too. You know what I mean? This conversation is happening for a reason. So I'm going to get teary because this is, sorry. Okay. So how long did it take you once you realized what the hell was going on? How long did it take you to get out of that?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I can necessarily say that I'm completely out of all of it. Obviously the patterns and the brainwashing and things like that took probably a couple of years. And I say that because it has to be done in increments. And you also have to be okay with opening up to people or someone to help you through those kinds of things. And that takes a lot, because when you've been burned like that for 8 years and you find out all of those pieces, it's very hard to trust people. And there's a lot of shame and guilt that goes into that as well, because not only was it me that was in that situation, my children were in that situation. Right. And that's something that honestly, until very recently, I have carried on my shoulders, is that, what my children went through and what they're dealing with now, and the things that they react to or the things that trigger them. I know where a lot of that comes from. And to be a parent and not be able to say that I kept my kids safe is extremely hard to deal with and move past. So I don't know that I can honestly say that as far as the entire situation that I'm completely out of it. But as far as knowing the reasons why I do some of the things that I do, or why I catch myself in patterns, is because I have spent so much time learning about it and asking questions and reaching out to get help, because I know that I don't want that to rule my life. Right. And I do know that like I said in the bio, I do believe that some people are meant to go through things because we have the strength to
Right.
be the people to have those conversations
Here we're the
for
lucky ones.
those that can't, or
Right.
that don't, right? Or that maybe got out but have lost themselves in a dark corner and don't know how to get out because they don't think anyone would understand. I
Right.
want to be that person to bring that to light, to let people know that they're not alone and your thoughts are not just yours. And I guarantee you there are thousands others out there.
More, probably more than thousands, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, we go through stuff so we can hopefully prevent somebody else from going through it, or if they're going through it, you know, let them know that, like you said, you know, they're not alone. I mean, you know, my whole, you know, homeless thing, people, they're like, you what? You know, I didn't graduate high school. I have, you know, I had a GED because
Mm-hmm.
my mother moved in with her boyfriend and, you know, all of that stuff. And I didn't graduate college, and people are like, what? I had somebody say to me, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, I thought you were like Ivy League. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what the hell. Okay. You know, no, I mean, I was in the intelligence gifted classes my entire life until, you know, high school went, you know, awry. But no, I didn't graduate. And people can't believe that. And then, you know, some people are like, how the hell are you where you are? Like, how do you own your business? How do you know how to do this? And it's like, I learned. I just
Mm-hmm.
watched and learned and, you know, experienced it. And I don't know, you know, like Michelle was on yesterday and she goes, you know, I consider it luck. I don't think it's luck. I think it's
No.
hard work, and we're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You know, we're always where we're supposed to be, always. And, you know, whatever that situation is. And, you know, the fact that you can say that you're still not through it, right? I mean, to me, that's huge. And it's also, you know, I want to reach through here and give you like a giant, you know, hug, because it life circumstances can be so damn hard.
Mm-hmm.
And people will look at us and have no idea what we've gone through, what, you know, we're going through, whatever. And I always say, just be kind, because you never know what somebody's going through or what they've gone through or where they've been. So it doesn't take a lot to just, you know, don't be an asshole, be nice to people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, real fast, and then we'll get into the other stuff. But, you know, if somebody's listening right now that's going through this, I know what I want to tell them, but what do you want to tell them?
I would say that if you recognize patterns and things that correlate with what I've talked about, I challenge you to take a step back from what your brain tells you and start looking at what somebody else has been saying to you and ask yourself if that's your thoughts or theirs. That's a really big one for me. And when you realize that, and when you're able to break that apart and say, no, it's not what I believe. It is what somebody has been saying. It's time to make a step. It's time to make a plan, whatever that looks like, however long it takes to get yourself out of it.
Wow. Whew. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, you know, part of you. I mean, that's, you know, I know you feel that, you know, you went through it to help people, but I'm sorry that you had to go through it. I mean,
Thank you.
It sucks. So, but what doesn't suck is that you've come out of the other side. I know you're still going through some stuff, but you've come, you know, through the other side, and now you're an entrepreneur. You have your own thing. So, what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? I know you were working for another business, and I know we talked about this, but the audience doesn't know. So, you know, what made you decide to become, you know, an entrepreneur, you know, after all, God, that.
Yeah. So I I thought I would always be in the medical field. That's what my degree was, and realized that I was growing other people's businesses that didn't necessarily have my interest or the people that they were helping's interest above their own. And it became a huge frustration for me because all I wanted to do was help people. Um, so interestingly enough, I had thought about getting into real estate at the time, and the plan was to save up money and set stuff back and eventually go into it and still work at the doctor's office and all the things. What ended up being a blessing in disguise is I was fired unannounced out of nowhere, with no knowledge whatsoever. But it pushed me into that world to test it out. At the time, I was a single mom. I wanted to be there for my kids, and I needed that flexibility. And I knew that I could also grow enough to be able to provide for them things that we had never had before. And I wanted my children to understand that no matter what you go through, you can still be whatever you want to be. And if that means creating your own business and becoming this huge thing, like, go for it, right? So I did it because, I wanted the freedom, of course, but I wanted my kids to see how much you could strive to do that. So that's when I made the move into real estate. I loved working with the people, but I actually enjoyed working with the people inside of the office as well, and helping them grow their business and teaching them the things that I wish I would have known, or the stuff that I picked up on really quick that I could help people understand. And that just led from one thing to another. It just kept rolling into, I kept getting these opportunities. I was a solo agent. I joined a team. I learned stuff from a team. I got offered a corporate position with my brokerage. And so I was like, why not? And it's interesting because, a lot of people that I speak with will say, well, I just don't want to make the wrong decision. And I'm like, but you can never make a wrong decision.
Right.
Because any decision that you make is either going to put you closer to your goal, or it's going to teach you what you don't want. And so that's what I did through all the different roles that I had, as I created my business management. Was, okay, I did this with the team and I liked this, and I found out I was really great at this. So, like, this is what I want more of. And then when I got offered the corporate role, I was like, okay, it's more of that, right? And so within that, I learned more of, like, okay, I don't like this piece.
Right.
I really like this side, and, like, I could really build this from even more. So, I don't see any of it as a mistake or a wrong decision. I feel like it helped me narrow down what it is that I really do enjoy doing, which has actually evolved over the last 2 years that I've been doing business management, because it went from kind of doing everybody's back end work for them, so kind of like their offset employee, to consulting with people and giving them ideas and brainstorming with them to create the systems. And now I get to wrap in personal development and really helping people on a different level to figure out why they're not going forward in their business, or what could be holding them back, or help them through people pleasing patterns, or whatever the case may be, which a lot of times is all wrapped into your limiting beliefs and your mindset and the stuff that you've gone through in the past. We just don't always necessarily have time to fool with it. So we do like I did and shove it in a box and tell it to be quiet and move on about our lives. And we don't realize that eventually that crap is going to unravel, and it's going to come out, whether it's in your business, your personal, with your kids, with your relationship, it's going to come out somewhere.
Right. Right. And it does. And it always, we were talking about how, your childhood, like there's, or it's not, it doesn't have to be your childhood. There's one point in your life that the trauma, that like a trauma happened, and I know there are some people out there, they're like, well, I haven't, experienced trauma. I promise you, everybody does. We may not look at it the same. It may not be the same type of trauma, but there's always something that ends up being the catalyst or the impetus for why we do something, right? And, I've kind of evolved, the same way. I mean, I find myself doing a lot of consulting, a lot of, I still offer the services that I offer, but now it's more strategy based. It's more, I help them look at things strategically. And I'm like, like I have this skill now, and it's like, okay. And it's like, it's an amazing feeling when you use your powers for good, right? You use your powers. Like, my biggest thing is I want all of my clients to succeed past their wildest dreams, because, it's, if they're not successful, I'm not successful. That means I didn't do something. But if they're successful, then I'm successful because I did do something, right, to help them. And when you see it all unfold, and it's like, yeah, this is like an amazing feeling. So you, okay, so you realized all of that. I mean, do you miss the corporate piece at all, or are you just like? There's a lot of people that are like, little, and then other people like, I'm done, never want to.
Yeah, I know I can't. And I think that's because no matter what was taught to me, I never played by the rules. I always figured out my own ways.
Why we get along so well. Yes.
I always figured out my own ways to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm like, but I could do this like 10 times better and do it 5 times faster. Like, why don't we do it this way? Right. Yeah. And now I have freedom to do like all these things.
Yes.
So, and for those that are in the corporate world, like, if you're happy where you're at, fan-freaking-tastic. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. No. For me, enjoy being able to lead others and let them see what's already inside of them so that they can grow even more. Like, I enjoy that. And you don't really get that in the corporate world, unless you're like top of the top and you can do that, which most people don't for their employees, right? It's just, that's just not there in that atmosphere. You're very stifled, or at least for me, I felt very stifled. And I'm also not good at keeping my mouth shut. So if I don't agree with something, I'm going to tell you. If I don't like the way
we get along so well.
If I don't like your ethics and your morals and they don't line up with mine, I'm going to say something. I don't necessarily have to be a twat about it, right? But if I don't agree with it, I'm going to let you know, because there's a reason why I'm not doing it. Right. I'm not going to do it just because you want me to do it that way, right? And so there needs to be some form of communication, and I just couldn't find that within any of the corporate positions that I was in. But I do have that ability as an entrepreneur to have those conversations with business owners, and it's not coming from a place of biasism or frustration or anything. It's a business decision. And that's what I tell all my people. I'm like, I have to tell you this hard truth, and we're going to have this conversation, and you're probably not going to like it, but I need you to separate it from your personal decisions and understand this is a business decision. And in order to continue where you want to go, this is what you have to do. And when you can take those out, you can make decisions on a better level. And I enjoyed that piece of it 10 times more than following other people's instructions.
Well, yeah, because I mean, and that's why we're entrepreneurs, because we march to the beat of a different drum. We're not going to dance to that tune, right? Because that's not our jam. This is just going to go down a hole. I'm just going to stop. It's just going to keep going. But, I mean, it's true. It's like, I remember when, I used to work for people, and, they hired me as marketing director or, whatever, and they wouldn't let me do my freaking job. Mm-hmm. Or they hired me to do sales and they wanted me to sell a certain way. That's not how you're going to get results out of me. I mean, I still ended up getting results and salesperson of the year and all this stuff, but I was miserable because it wasn't, and I didn't do things their way. I did things my way, but I was miserable because they didn't want me to, and they were making my life hell, Now, and I'm like you, it's like, I know my attributes. I can sit down and tell my client, we may want to try it this way because this is not necessarily working. Mm-hmm. And say it from a place of love and compassion and empathy. And they know that I have nothing but their best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that's the best part, is that I can have the conversation. And, I've had my last 3 clients tell me the reason they're working with me is because of that, is because, this was like so funny. Well, whatever, but I sent a proposal out last week. I had 2 meetings with, and he's now a client, but I sent a proposal out. And, the first conversation we had was, in order for you to meet the people that you want to meet, you should probably have a podcast, and then you can invite them on and, whatever. And the second conversation we had, though, that wasn't in it at all. And we talked about other things, and we got off the call and I wrote up this proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw the podcast on there, and I added a couple of other things that I thought about afterwards. And I sent the proposal. And I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, like, oh my God, I didn't discuss any of that with him. Like, the stuff that, is in that proposal isn't everything that I added stuff, and oh my God, so I sent him a text the next day and I said, hey, do you have like 15 minutes? And he goes, is it about the proposal? And I was like, yes. I said, but it's not, it's nothing bad, but there's just some things in there that I really kind of want to discuss. I haven't even looked at it yet. Oh, can I send you a revision? Yes. Thank you. So I sent him the revision. We had a conversation the next day, and I went over everything. And I said, the reason this wasn't on there was because, we talked about it. And then I said, I thought about it afterwards and talked to my team. And we were like, this is really what, in order for you to have the best results, you should do. I said, and
Mm-hmm.
so, and, we just continued talking, and he said, this is what I want in a partner. He goes, you're 100% transparent. You have no problem calling your own shit out. He goes,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes, it's for my betterment. He said, so I'm going to look at the proposal and we'll, talk. So I was like, okay. And then I'm like, oh my God, did I, blow this? Even though I know he said nice things, but, people say nice things and, whatever. So then I got a text saying, looked at the proposal, would like to discuss a few things and discuss the path forward. So I look at Heather and I'm like, he said path forward. So that means he's moving forward, right? And so she's like, oh my God, you're like neurotic. So, we went into the meeting, to go over everything. And he was like, I love everything that you did. Let's, do it. And it was one of those things that, I worry so much about, because I've seen businesses do the wrong thing. And I'm so cognizant of that I don't want to be that person. So I want to make sure that everything that I put out there is 100% ethical, and it's done, from a complete, place of integrity and love and caring and, all of it. And so I was like, oh my God, how is that going to, come across? But what that taught me was that I do come from all of those places. That is, that's my MO, that's my mission. And so, I'm in the midst of redoing my website and redoing my brand. And, as each thing happens, it's like, I need to include that in my brand, like, my brand story, my brand, all of that. So, it's interesting how, these things happen and we're like, oh my God, I definitely don't want to do this. I definitely want to do this. And you're 100% right on that. So, I know I got off on a tangent, but it's like those oh shit moments that make you, kind of wake up and realize what really you're meant to do and all that. So what advice do you have for someone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
Ooh, okay. So, so many avenues that we could go down.
I know.
So I definitely think the first thing would be, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Right. That's the first thing. And I don't want a surface level answer of, oh, I'm just tired of my job, or, oh, I want to make a ton of money. Like, you can do that where you're at now. You just may not be with the right corporation, right? Or you may not be in the right area or the right field where you can thrive. Like, so I always say, you really need to have a conversation with yourself and journal about why you want to be an entrepreneur. to really figure out that piece, because too many people that I speak with and I deal with, especially in the real estate world, or, you know, or in the entrepreneurs as well, that's always their thing, right? I want to make a lot of money. I want to leave my job. I'm tired of the 9 to 5. Okay, that's fantastic. You can find things that make you happy, though,
right,
in the job world that can be your career. That doesn't necessarily mean you're an entrepreneur. It's not what entrepreneurship means, people. It's not, doesn't mean you get rich. It's not how that works.
no.
But
And they think we're all rich, and it's like, no, no. I had somebody, you know, we talked about it last year. It was like, oh, you're an entrepreneur. It was somebody who wanted me to do a sponsorship. He's like, well, you own your own business. Can't you do like a $3,000 sponsorship? And I was like, I can give you $100. Like, what? But sorry.
Yeah, no, you know, they do though.
Assume it. Yeah.
Yeah, because social media loves to portray that everybody is perfect and they have all this freaking money and they're doing all these things because they own their own business, but nobody wants to actually talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Heads up, people, that means you're a business owner. In case you don't know what a business owner does, they do everything, including their admin, including their hiring, including their firing, including the front end work that they don't want to do, that eventually they'll hire someone to doing the crap that they don't like doing, answering the phones, email, like the whole freaking shebang. And like, people don't realize that. And so you have to get clear on that. And then if you really in your heart feel like, you know, I am called, not I want to make money, but I'm called to help people, or I'm called to be a yoga instructor, or I'm called to, you know, be a health coach, whatever the case may be. The next thing is hiring a coach. You need to hire someone, because the worst thing that anybody can do getting into business on their own is thinking, I'll figure it all out. Great. Okay. Well, 10 years down the road, let me know how that works for you. And let me know if you're back in your job. Because if you can't have the mindset of, let me find someone that knows how to do it so they can skip me light years ahead, you are going to forever struggle. Yeah. Forever struggle.
And make sure you get a good coach. Because I worked with a coach for a little while, and, you know, his advice was for me to be less me.
Oh, fantastic.
That went away, you know. I mean, I did it for 8 months and, you know, whatever, but then it was like, I'm not working with you anymore.
Yeah, find somebody that resonates with you. I mean, I suggest figuring out what your values are, right? Like, one of my biggest values is authenticity. Like, I like people that just know how to be them, no matter how stupid, silly, crazy it is. If you can be you and you can show that authentically, like, you are my people, right? That's actually how I met my husband, because he's a freaking nut. And I absolutely love that about him.
And my wife, yep. I hear
he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's just him. And I'm like, that's fantastic. So when you're looking for people like that, obviously you need to find people that match your morals and your values, not just people that can say, oh, I can make you a ton of money. Like, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. They need to match your personality. They need to match who you are, or who you want to be, so that you can look up to them to strive to be in that next level. So I would say those are your two biggest pieces to start out with on the journey of thinking about it.
Cool. So this is for entrepreneurs, people thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, people on their journey, and seasoned entrepreneurs and C-suite. So what advice do you have for somebody who is a seasoned entrepreneur? Like, what is an obstacle that you've overcome and, come out on the other side of, to be successful in what you do?
I would say the biggest two is letting go of your ego and realizing your limiting beliefs. Those are the two biggest ones. Letting go of your ego, because as an entrepreneur, especially if you're seasoned, you're going to hit ceilings. You're going to be triggered. You're going to deal with people that don't align with you, and you have to be able to handle that in a different manner than most people do. which is, getting frustrated, getting irritated, taking it out on that person or taking it out on someone else. You have to let go of that ego, that voice in the back of your head that runs everything, and be able to be outside of yourself when it comes to making decisions. And that means getting curious within your business, right? If something's not working, instead of getting frustrated with it, ask questions. Okay, well, why not? Why could it be this? Why is this not working? And really look into that. The ego has a really hard time with that. It has a really hard time with accepting that we're screwing up, right? It wants to be the all perfect. So if you can let go of that and you can learn to accept that, not as a negative thing, but as a positive way to impact yourself, to make change, to better yourself, to move to the next level, that's going to help tremendously. And the second one, limiting beliefs, that's a huge one. I don't care where you are at in your business, you're always dealing with limiting beliefs, whether it's things that you learned when you were a kid that you're still dealing with, that you don't even realize, or things that maybe people told you when you first started business. And so that holds you back from getting new business, or how you have conversations with clients now or potential clients. You have to work on those all the time. This is not a you do it and then you're done with it. Like, you always, the ego, same thing. Like, you have to constantly be willing to work on these pieces so that you can get to the next level. I think entrepreneurship is one of the greatest journeys of self-discovery and self-improvement. If you do it the right way, right? Yes. And honestly,
give an example of limiting beliefs, because that's like, that could be like really broad, and some people could be like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, for example, one of the biggest ones that I see is money, your beliefs around money. And I see this one with people that, let's say, does have the business, they're getting some flow, but they can never keep any money. I'm always broke. It's I have too many expenses and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you go through those things, and then you find out that it's not that you have too many expenses, you're spending it on stupid things, or you're blowing it here, or you're finding some stupid course that doesn't even match up with your business.
Right.
That can be because you have a limiting belief around you having the ability to have more money. So looking at, when you were growing up, how was the conversation with your family around money? If you grew up poor, you may be having a really hard time with getting past that point of not being poor, because it's subconsciously in your mind that that's how you're supposed to be, because that's what you were raised with. If you had a family that was always telling you, you have to work your butt to the bones, you have to constantly work hard, you'll never make it, and money doesn't grow on trees, that right there can be devastating to your business. And that could be one of the reasons why you're spending money that you shouldn't be, because subconsciously your mind is like, oh, no, we can't have this much. We're not meant to have this much. That's not where we're supposed to be. So go ahead, blow it on something, right? You don't even realize that you're doing it. It's a subconscious thought. What we don't realize is a lot of the things, the beliefs that we have, are not our own. We've created it to be our own truth.
Wow. I wrote that down because that's huge.
A lot of things, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from your childhood. It could be something that someone told you. Maybe you tried to go out on your own before, and people constantly told you you'd never make it, or you weren't assertive, or whatever the case may be. And now you're doing it, but you find yourself not being able to have those conversations.
Right.
It's because you're allowing somebody else's thoughts and words become your truth. That doesn't make them true. It's what we have interpreted. And now, like I said, that subconscious has it in the back of its mind that's like, oh, this is how we do things. This is how we do things. And you're like, I don't get it. I'm not that person. I'm not doing this. Why is it? Because you have not dealt with the root issue, which is your subconscious.
Wow. That is awesome. Honestly, this is the 24th. I don't even know what the hell episode this is. But that's the first time that anybody talked about limiting beliefs. And I think it's so important because, and that's why I wanted you to give an example, because I know we all have them, right? We struggle with them all the time. I know I do. And to be able to identify something like that is so it's huge. It's huge because, you know, like you said, we don't even realize it. We don't even realize it until we're like, wait a minute, why am I doing, you know, whatever? So, okay, what is your differentiator? Like, what makes you different from anybody else who's, you know, doing what you're doing?
I think what makes me different is obviously my own perspective, right? Because anyone can be a business coach and we may do very similar work, but it doesn't mean that we interpret things the same, which also means that my client may not take it the same. But I think what really makes me different is not only do I want to help you succeed and create organization and systems and habits that you can grow with, but I am the person that is going to ask you a ton of questions to really figure out why you are doing or why you are not doing certain things in your business. And then from there, learning more about you as an individual based on what you've been through, what you grew up with, and what your goals are, and use that as a foundation to build your business forward.
Awesome. So everybody listening out there, if you are looking for a business management coach, where are you anyway? I know you're in Tennessee, right?
Yes. I'm in Tennessee.
I was right. Okay. Because I speak to so many people, and you know, but you stuck out, and I remembered Tennessee, but and I know you work anywhere, right? Like it doesn't have to be local, right? So if you're listening and you're in Tennessee or you're not in Tennessee, definitely get hold of Kat because first off, I think you're a badass because of everything that really, you know, that you've gone through, and you were able to, you know, make something out of nothing. That's not something easy. A lot of people don't have that wherewithal to be able to do that. I think there's a select, you know, few of us that not that we're just survivors, we're thrivers. And, you know, I love meeting, you know, people who are like that because, you know, that's kind of what I've gone through. Each of our journeys are different. Each of our experiences are different, but the outcome, excuse me, is the same. And that's what I love. And I love that Sabrina introduced us and, you know, we had our conversation, and to me, it was just a no-brainer to ask you to be here because, you know, this thing has just evolved into its own little animal. I mean, it's like, you know, people are like, well, what's your podcast about? Well, you know, entrepreneurs, and it's for entrepreneurs and C-suite and whatever, but you're going to hear a bunch of shit that you are not expecting, you know, because we talk real, we talk about people's stories, and, you know, everyone's story is just completely different. And, yeah, I mean, I want to thank you, number one, for sharing your story. And see, we're at an hour already. I told you it goes fast, right? And I have this conversation every single show. It's like we're here, and it just goes like that. So thank you for taking time to do this. And the last question that I ask all of my guests is, what lights your fire? What lights you up? What, you know, where's your passion? And it can be personal, professional, whatever, you know, whatever.
Okay. Well, besides watching my clients grow,
right.
Honestly, I would have to say that I enjoy watching people learn about themselves and being able to open up to someone that takes very big pride in being non-judgmental, so that people can really dive in deep and learn about who they are. Like, that lights me up to know that I can be that for people, to allow them to succeed in whatever area of their life that they're trying to succeed in. And it's one of the reasons why personal development is something I really want to wrap into my business this year, because a lot of people in the entrepreneurial world focus on their business and managing, but there's a lot of inner work that needs to be done as well. But that's so hard to do to put your vulnerabilities out there and trust that someone is not going to be like, ugh, right? And so
Right.
I really, really love that I can be that person for people so that they can feel different about themselves and they can feel a little bit more lighthearted and more confident and start dealing with stuff and getting over things so that they really can thrive in their life. That lights me up more than anything. And sharing my story, to be honest. I want to create that peace of mind for people that have been through traumas in their life, men and women. And I want to be that support system, and I want to be that voice for those people so that they can ultimately hopefully make a decision to do something different, whether that's learning about what's going on or, finding help or getting out of a situation, whatever the case may be. It's a sign of improvement. And that's what this society needs.
I love that. You are so awesome. Thank you for being on here and for sharing your story and for sharing you, because you are just awesome. I wish you lived closer because we'd be hanging out.
Yes.
Okay, at least I think we'd be hanging out, but I'll just say that. How presumptuous of you, Iris. And for everybody else, I just want to really thank you for, hanging in there again for an hour, plus. And again, if you've heard anything here that, this episode especially, I really hope that, some of you that are listening have gotten something out of this and have found hope, and know that there's help out there, and you're not alone and you're not the only one going through stuff. So, you can get help out there. So, but if this resonated with you, please share, subscribe. When you subscribe, you get a notification of a new episode. And I really appreciate all of you. I know I say this all the time and, it sounds like it's, they're just words, but I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate all of you who are listening and watching and all of it. And I want to thank you, and go out and find what lights your fire. See you next time.